Hello and welcome to Then and Now, day number 4. This is a series of videos where I am reading through the book of Hosea, spending a little bit of time in Hosea's context and then letting the prophet pose some questions to us in our present day. My name is Derek Hoven and I am the pastor at Salem Lutheran Church in Orlando, and I'm thankful for you joining me for this conversation. So in days 1 through 3, we made some breakneck speed progress from verse 1 of chapter 1 all the way through verse 9. And in that process, we actually covered a lot of ground for as few verses as those are. The first verse setting some context in that the time of Hosea was one of great political upheaval and chaos amongst the leaders of Israel. Days 2 and 3 focused on some troublesome metaphors that Hosea uses with the infidelity of his wife Gomer, and then their children being named things that foresee the end of the monarchy, the end of God's compassion, and even the end of God as a presence for the people of Israel. James Lindbergh would say that these first 9 verses really dwell in a place of doom, and the prophet sort of setting up some expectations of some terrible things to come. And the prophet's words, end up being fulfilled. Both the northern monarchy and the people of Israel falls, and the southern monarchy eventually falls as well. Today, then, we jump in and read the rest of chapter 1. Let's go ahead and read those couple of verses, and we'll continue from there. Yet the number of the people of Israel shall be like the sand of the sea, which can be neither measured nor numbered. And in the place where it was said to them, "You are not my people," it shall be said to them, "Children of the living God." The people of Judah and the people of Israel shall be gathered together, and they shall appoint for themselves one head, and they shall take possession of the land, for great shall be the day of Jezreel. Here then we have hope, reversal. Just in verse 9, God said through this prophet, "You are not my people and I am not your God." And all the way already then in verse 10 right away, it's reversed back to say in that same place where God said that, the people will be called children of the living God. And not only will the monarchies that are going to fail be sort of reversed into a place of restoration, but they're going to come back together as one kingdom, is what the prophet is saying. The people of Judah and the people of Israel shall be gathered together, and they shall appoint for themselves one head. So these last couple of verses of chapter 1 kind of are held in tension with the first bunch of verses, right? So we get all of this doom about the people moving away from God, and with the subtext of people that are exploited and oppressed by the leaders who are taking them into these places of war and chaos. But then, after all of that sort of judgment is spoken, there's this word of hope that ultimately the people are children of God, and that ultimately God is going to bring some sort of restoration to those same people that have been unfaithful and floated away from God collectively in their behavior as the people of Israel. What might the prophet ask of us with these words of hope? My question that I see the prophet giving, right, is that you're going to go from this place of feeling disconnected from God to being children of the living God, where in our lives, collectively, and maybe as individuals, do we need the living God to show up? Where places do we need hope? We're sneaking up on the season of Advent. It's a season where we talk about Jesus coming among us. And I think it's always a good question to ask for Advent. Where do we need Jesus to show up in our lives? For the prophet, where do we need to be called children of the living God, because it feels like we have God's absence someplace? So we'll be left to wrestle with those questions and return tomorrow to pick up this journey with chapter 2. Thanks for being with me.